Hey guys, today we're diving into the world of English prepositions. This big class is all about helping you understand them better. If you're still figuring out prepositions or just want to sharpen your skills, you're in the right place. We're going to explore common mistakes, tricky parts, and by the end, you'll be a pro at using prepositions. So let's jump in and make prepositions a piece of cake for you. Today, we're going to talk about the most common prepositions: at, in, and on. So, let's do a quick quiz. He lives Ixius 13 Long Street. You have to select either in, on, or at. I'm visiting my grandma Asin Sius a hospital. I like traveling seeing Sius a train. Now, you're going to get the right answers at the end of this video, but make sure you write your answers down so you can check yourself later. Now, let's talk about some rules. Rule 1. When we use at is used with a very exact place, like a small building, something that is small. You would always use at in phrases like at the door, at the hospital, at school, at the university, at the table, at the door. So, something specific would always be at. But when you're thinking about big things like, Panama, Guatemala, St. Petersburg, or London, you would never say at, because at only applies to smaller things. So, you can be in London, in Panama, in Guatemala, but you wouldn't say at these places. You can say, I am at the desk, I am at home, I am at my studio, I am at the bus stop, etc. At is used for smaller, specific locations, like at this university, at the door. Rule 2. Using on with streets and avenues. We use on with streets and avenues. I live on Park Avenue. I live on North Avenue. I live on Green Street. But please remember, there are exceptions. If you're talking about a university campus, you would say, I live on campus, not at campus. On is typically used with streets, but on campus is an exception. When we have a number in the address, we use at, I live at 13 Green Street. I live at 45 Denston Street. But when we don't have a number, like when you're asking someone where they are, you would use on, I'm on Market Street. Rule 3. Using in with bigger locations. We use in for bigger locations like cities, towns, countries, and parts of countries. For example, I live in London. I live in New York. We have been in New York for 2 weeks. We are in Los Angeles Hills. With states, you would say, I live in California, or I live in California. For countries, it's I used to live in Russia, and for continents, it's my sister is in Africa. To sum things up, we use at for specific locations. We use on for less specific locations, like streets. We use in for bigger locations, like cities, towns, countries, and parts of countries. Now, moving a little further with our prepositions, let's explore more examples. In is also used when we are talking about an enclosed space, something that has a roof or walls. For example, in a car, in a box, in a building. You would say, I am waiting for you in my car, or they're in a car. Can you please help me find a pen in this box? Don't put your wallet in a pocket. Now listen carefully. We're moving to on. We use on with a bus. You might ask, but why in a car, but on a bus? Wait a minute. I'll explain. The other words we use on with are words that represent surfaces. For example, on the table, on the floor, on the wall. We also use on when we talk about left and right, on the left, on the right. You might say, I think it's on the left for you, on the right for me. Or, Cambridge is on the River Cam. But why in a car, but on a bus? In is used with means of transportation where you can't stand up, like a car or a helicopter. You can't stand up in a car, so you say in a car. But you can stand up on a bus, so you say on a bus. Similarly, we use on with planes and trains because you can stand up. We use on for transportation where you can stand up, like on a boat or on a bike. On a boat, there's usually no roof, so we say on a boat, on a ship, on a plane, on a train. What about in a hospital versus at a hospital? Both are grammatically correct, but they have different meanings. If you say, I'm in a hospital, it means you're a patient, receiving treatment. For example, my uncle is in the hospital right now receiving treatment. But if you say, I'm at the hospital, it means you're not a patient, just doing something there. For example, I am visiting my uncle at the hospital. The same applies to other institutions like school, museums, libraries, or events. I'm at a concert. Additional tips for all versus all of. We use all of when we have pronouns. Us, they, them, me, you. All of us are going to Malibu next week. All of them have completed their TOEFL test. For all other cases, we use all without of. All the people are forced to stay at home. All the students have to wear masks. And finally, time expressions. In is used with general measurements, like, I'll be there in 2 minutes. I'll see you in 2 days. We're going to travel abroad in 2 months. On is used for specific dates. I'll see you on Monday. At is used for specific times. I'll see you at 12 p.m., or the classes start on September 21st. I'll go now if we'll see you on Friday. And remember that in is also used with a year. I was born in 1990. He will come back in 2025. That was in 1994. Beside verses. Besides, beside is a preposition that means nearby. For example, we were camping beside the river. We were camping on the shore, right? We're really close to the river, and we're camping there, beside the white chickens. Besides is an adverb and preposition that means in addition to. For example, besides, we need your support in this venture. So, this is something you would start your sentence with. Besides 2 suitcases, I'm taking 3 boxes with me. It means, in addition to my boxes, I'm taking my suitcases. Among versus between among is used when you have a group of objects or people, usually 3 or more. For example, she's very popular among her classmates. She's a very popular girl, right? I can choose among all your t-shirts. You have like 30 in your closet, oh my God. Between is used when you have 2 objects. For example, I can't decide between going to the cinema and staying at home. Between us on versus upon, they're actually interchangeable. You can use both. But upon is really formal and old-fashioned. Remember this. Once upon a time, there was this little girl who lived in the forest. Blah, blah, blah. All the fairy tales will start like that. but you would usually just use on in most contexts. For example, put your book on the table, to versus thon. There are several words that can only be followed by to, and these words are senior, junior, prefer, prior, superior, inferior, preferable. For example, he is senior to me in service, right? We're using to. I prefer coffee to tea. I like coffee more. He is superior to me in terms of grades, which means he's higher than me. Is Matthew superior to me? So with these words, we use to. In other cases, we use than. For example, he's better than me. She's more beautiful than me. You're no better than he is. In versus into we use in when we have a person, an animal, or an object located in a location. For example, I was sitting in the classroom. He was in the house when the policeman came. He is in your office. We use into in the sense of coming towards something. For example, he came into my office. So, he was entering a closed space and moving toward me. He came into the store. Agree with versus agree to agree with is used for agreement with a person. For example, I agree with you. We need to practice English daily. I agree with our president that we need to support our economy. I agree with Denise. Agree to is used for agreement to a plan, proposal, or idea. For example, I agree to your proposal. Let's start a company together. I agree to your idea to share this video with all of my friends. You'll agree to anything. For versus since, I think this pair of prepositions can be quite confusing. So for refers to a period of time, while since refers to the start date of a period of time. For I've been vlogging for 9 years already, period of time. Since I've been vlogging since 2014, start date. Here's a great example for you to practice. Write this down below in the comments section as 2 sentences. Guys, 1. I've been following Lingua Marina for how many years? 3 years? 4 years? 1 year? 1 month? 1 day? I'm a new subscriber. 2. I've been following Lingua Marina since 2021, when I first saw her video about TOEFL or English grammar, whatever. Or, I've been following Lingua Marina since 2022, right? So, let me know in the comments when you first started watching me and why. What was the video that caught your attention and made you subscribe? This will be very useful for my future videos because I want to make sure I produce more content that helps you become better in English. Please comment below, and thank you for doing this and for practicing your English in the comments. Now, we're going to transition to the next part of this video and continue talking about prepositions. Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to look at some commonly confused prepositions and conjunctions to test how well you know them. I've prepared a little test based on the Barbie movie. If you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry. You can still take the test. Keep track of your answers, and if you finish the test without any mistakes, write winner in the comments below. That way, we'll know that this topic is easy for you. If you make some mistakes, let us know how many questions you got wrong. Let's get started. Question 1. Barbie and Ken have known each other many years. You have 5 seconds to answer the question. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time to think. The right answer is 4. Barbie and Ken have known each other for many years. Now, why can't I say during many years or while many years? We use during to show when something happened. It is always followed by a noun. For example, during the party, Barbie didn't pay attention to Ken. During the trip to the real world, Ken learns a lot about patriarchy. We use for to show how long something happens. For example, for 5 minutes, for 6 months, for 10 years, for many years. We cannot say for the party unless you want to say that you prepared a gorgeous dress for the party, but that's a completely different story. Barbie and Ken have known each other for many years refers to the period of time. Finally, while is a conjunction, and it's usually followed by the subject and the verb. It can be used to show that two things are happening at the same time. For example, Barbie was trying to find the child playing with her in the real world, while Ken was learning about patriarchy and horses. The two actions happened at the same time. While can also be used to indicate contrast. Ken likes Barbie, while Barbie doesn't like Ken. The next pair that is commonly confused is by versus until. Question 2. Barbie has to finish her project. Barun. Sunday. You have 5 seconds to think it over. What do you think the right answer is? The right answer is by. Barbie has to finish her project by Sunday. We use by to talk about deadlines. Imagine that you mark a day on your calendar and have to complete something before that day. That's a deadline. Because it's a deadline, you'll often see words like have to, should, need, and must in such sentences. For example, Barbie and Ken must get to the real world by noon. They must do it before that time. Barbie should find the girl who's playing with her by the end of the month, by noon, by the end of the month, by Friday, by August, by 4 p.m., by the end of the week. These are all examples of deadlines. Now, when talking about until, imagine a lion. Why? Because it describes a period of time. For example, the party lasts until 11 p.m. It probably starts at some time before then, let's say 5 p.m., and then it lasts until 11 p.m. So we're talking about a time period. Compare these two sentences. Cinderella had to leave the ball by midnight. This is her deadline. We don't care about all the other time she could have spent at the ball dancing with the prince. Cinderella could stay at the ball until midnight. I'm interested in the time period from the moment she got there until midnight. Until is used to state how long an event takes place or a situation continues. Till means the same as until, but is more casual. So, in formal writing, when you're writing an essay or a letter, you'll usually use until. People usually use till instead of until in casual conversation. For example, if Ken were to invite Barbie out on a date, he could have said, "Let's hang out at Starbucks till the movie starts." No rush. Question 3. Tests another pair of similar words, across and through. Barbie ran to the street to get to the other side. Well, that one is getting more challenging. The correct answer is across. Barbie ran across the street to get to the other side. To understand these prepositions, let's look at the pictures. We use across to show that we move from one side to another. We can move across the road, across the bridge, across the river, across the country, and so on. We use through to indicate that we move from one end or side of something to the other. In the process, we can be surrounded by something or be in it. For example, I was walking through the forest when I heard a strange noise. I was walking through the forest. I was in the forest, and I was surrounded by the trees. You can walk through the forest, run through the fog. You'll be surrounded by fog. Crawl through the bushes. You'll be surrounded by the bushes. Drive through the city. You'll be surrounded by buildings. You can also walk through the door. For a second, you'll be inside the frame or look through the window. Finally, over is used when we move at a higher level than something else. For example, I walk over the hill every day. The hill is higher than the ground, so I use over. I can also jump over the fence or fly over the mountains. Question 4. There is a scene in the movie when Barbie is sitting on a bench with an old woman. Barbie, who is feeling fragile after being brutally roasted by a teenage girl, turns to the old woman and says, "You're beautiful," and the woman replies, "I know." So, what's the preposition we are going to use here? Well, actually, 2 options are correct. We can say, Barbie was sitting on a bench next to an old lady, and Barbie was sitting on a bench beside an old lady. We cannot say besides an old lady, though. Beside and next to mean pretty much the same and are used to indicate that something is located very close to or at the side of something else. It's easy to remember beside means by the side of. You can sit next to or beside a person or next to or beside their bed. Beside is a little more formal, so in everyday English, we'll usually use next to. For example, Barbie was sitting on a bench next to an old lady, but if I were reading classics, like J.A., for example, I'd see something like, she was sitting beside him. In this context, both beside and next to are prepositions. Besides can be a preposition or a linking adverb. As a preposition, it means apart from or in addition to. For example, besides Barbie and horses, did Ken have any other interests? I mean, interests in addition to Barbie and horses. When we use besides as a linking adverb, we usually want to add more information or give another reason for something. For example, let's go home. The movie is stupid. Besides, I haven't eaten since breakfast, so I'm hungry. Question 5. Ken walked the room and announced that it was his Mojo Dojo Jokasa house. This one is easy. The right option is into. Ken walked into the room. Into indicates movement toward the inside, while onto indicates movement toward the top of something. How to remember these prepositions of movement faster? Break them into 2 parts. Into equals in plus 2. 2 is a preposition that describes the direction of movement. In means inside. So, into means toward the inside. Onto equals on plus 2. To describes the direction of movement, while on means on top of something. So onto is the movement toward the top of something. Compare. Ken walked into the room. Movement toward the inside. The cat jumped onto the table. Movement toward the top of the table. Speaking of toward and towards, what's the difference? Would you say, Barbie is moving toward her house or towards her house? Actually, both are correct. But toward is more common in American English, and towards is more common in British English. However, you can pretty much use them interchangeably, so you can still hear a lot of Americans saying both. For example, she walked toward the park. He ran towards the station. That is all for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to write winner in the comments if you got all the prepositions right. If you made a mistake, let us know how many questions you got wrong. For more practice, think of sample sentences using the prepositions that were challenging for you. Back to Marina. Let's do a quick quiz. I'm going to read 3 sentences. You're going to write down the prepositions, and at the end of the video, I'm going to give you the right answers. We're planning to visit the museum Wednesday afternoon. By the way, guys, let me know if you watch my shorts on this channel. I always do this sound, and people laugh a lot. Anyways, the surprise twist. The end of the movie was completely unexpected. And the last one, want to go and walk? Tomorrow morning, I can't. I can Sunday morning, though. I hope you wrote down your answers because we're going to check them at the end of this video. Okay, first things first. Let's talk about mornings, afternoons, evenings, and nights. So, the thing is, sometimes we don't even use prepositions. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, no preposition needed. For example, I missed you this morning. I was exhausted this afternoon. But in other cases, we should. For example, I prefer showering touching the morning. See you hatter being the morning. And the same goes for afternoon and evening. We'll have lunch on our terrace in the afternoon and then leave. We usually watch a movie in the evening. So, morning, afternoon, and evening. We use in, especially in the afternoon. Now, what about night? Let's look at the example. I can't sleep. That night. You're tempted to say in the night because it's in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, right? Well, night is an exception. Welcome to learning English. There are always exceptions. I can't sleep at night. The reason for that is that night refers to a continuous period of time, while morning, evening, and afternoon refer to parts of the day. So, we use at night for any night, and in the night usually refers to a particular night. And we used in? Is it in Thursday morning? Because the day comes first. It's going to be on Thursday morning, on Friday evening, on Wednesday night, okay? So whenever we have a day of the week, we use on. Now, what about the weekend? It's on the weekend, though sometimes you can hear people say at the weekend. That is more British. Americans would say on the weekend. I like to relax and spend time with my family on the weekend. I did think you were forced to go there on the weekend. Now, funny exception. Another thing that you should remember is that we can say on Sundays, but there is a thing in English where you can just omit the preposition. You can say, I do my groceries Sundays. Do you usually go out Fridays? They have meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, you can just omit the preposition when you're talking about plural days of the week. Quick disclaimer, this is a conversational thing. I wouldn't do this on your exam, but sometimes you will hear native speakers do that, so just keep that in mind. And when in doubt, just use on. There is nothing wrong with saying, we have meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just for you to know, right? Because there are so many things native speakers would say in a different way, depending on where they are, where they come from, their level of education, their occupation. There are so many nuances. And I just want you to know this one. Okay, is it at the beginning or is it in the beginning? Let's talk about it. We use at the beginning or at the start to indicate a starting point, and normally we would have of in the same sentence. Let's look at a couple of examples. At the beginning of the meeting, I'll ask everyone to share ideas. She took off running at the start of the race. Let's consider your needs at the beginning of the summit. Now, we use in the beginning when we want to contrast two situations at different times. For example, in the beginning, I struggled to learn how to play the guitar, but with practice, I became quite good at it. Right. We're contrasting 2 points of time, in the beginning and later in the process. I was fine in the beginning. Now, at the end marks the point in time when something finishes, and when we want to show that, we say at the end. We're almost at the end of the book, but I still don't know what's going on. At the end of his speech, he thanked everyone for coming. At the end of the month. Now, we use in the end when we want to talk about things that happened after a long time or as a result of something. Let's look at an example. In the end, we decided to buy a cheaper car, right? So, we have this process of choosing the car, and in the end of that process, we decided to buy a cheaper car. See the difference? At the end, focuses on the point in time, and in the end, focuses on the result that happened after a long time. So, you've been thinking about it, debating, weighing options, and in the end, you decided to go for something. But, in the end, we always win. Now, let's check your answers, right? You took a test at the beginning of this video, right? We're planning to visit the museum on Wednesday afternoon. Right, days of the week. The surprise twist at the end of the movie was completely unexpected. Right, because we're marking a period of time, we're not talking about the result. We're talking about a particular part of that movie at the end of the movie. Want to go on a walk tomorrow morning? No preposition needed. I can't. I can on Sunday morning, though. On Sunday morning because we have our day of the week. And there you have it, guys. I really hope this video has given you a better understanding of the nuances of English prepositions. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more.